Welcome back to our little mini-series about creating a downstairs toilet and utility room. That just kind of sits there. Isn't that funny? Okie dokie. Hope this bowl's big enough. Uh-oh. The exciting news is we've got a functional basin. How cool is that? Hiya folks, welcome back to the show, and today we are doing all sorts of little jobs really, trying to get things finished off. We're getting very close to being done. Since the last episode I have fitted the basin to the wall. I haven't made a video about that because all you'd be able to see is my backside. It's one of those things where it's kind of pointless showing you me doing the work. I think you saw a little bit of me sorting the waste out, but that's kind of irrelevant because I've replaced the waste. I'll show you why in a second. So I've mentioned it a few times before on this channel, but there are things worth spending money on and there are things not worth spending money on. For example, whether or not you buy a 50 quid basin or a 200 quid basin, it's going to be ceramic and it's going to be white and they're all going to be doing more or less the same job. But an area that does make a difference is taps, and I do generally prefer to spend a bit extra on taps. Not just because they last longer, but because they're much easier to maintain, because if you go for a branded make, you can always buy spares for it. If you go for an unbranded make and it breaks in 5 years' time, you're probably going to have to replace the whole tap. I do generally prefer grower, not sponsored, but whatever, B&Q didn't have any grower ones in that we were particularly happy with. So we've gone for a Bristan, which is another, or Bristan, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's another good brand. And again, if anything goes wrong with it, you'll always be able to buy spares for it. It's all plumbed in, ready to go. And as it happened, this tap came with its own little pop-up waste, and it's a much nicer waste than the rubbish one that I bought from Wix, but whatever. I've wasted 3 quid on that. Such is life. But yeah, I've ended up refitting the waste because I was never particularly happy with this 3 quid one. As I say, we had all sorts of problems with it leaking and things. We managed to stop it leaking, but funnily enough, no surprise, this Bristan one that came with the tap, fitted it first time, no leaks whatsoever. So yeah, you get what you pay for. So this has got a much better quality brass nut on the bottom versus the plastic nut that was on the cheapy one. And as I say, just the machining and everything about the cheapy one was just a bit like, how you doing? But yeah, this is a much nicer waste, and it made sense to spend the time now sorting it out because I'll never get round to putting a better waste on later down the line. Connection wise, dead simple with this. It comes with these tap tails here, these flexi connectors, and they will connect directly onto a bog standard isolation valve. So you basically just take the top bit off the isolation valve, go straight on it, and I've just run those into copper underneath. As I say, all of this is going to get boxed in anyway once the vanity cupboard's in, so you're not going to see it. But as per usual, I'm thinking long-term maintenance. This is really easy to get to. We've got the isolation valves on either side. I think I mentioned last time that I'd started putting the framework in for the boxing around here. And a strange thing happened. As you know, I'd foamed all around the edges of the room and I'd stuffed this little gap here in between the pipes with just like rock wool insulation. There was loads of it in there. You could barely see the pipes, there was so much insulation. And I came into the room one day and that insulation was gone. So I'm not sure what's happened, whether or not like a mouse has tried to come up and has pulled the insulation back down under the floor. There's not been any evidence of mice, but I don't know where that insulation's gone. So I'm leaving this open at the minute. I've set up a little mouse trap, and so far, 2-3 days down the line, no sign of anything. But yeah, where did that insulation go? In the meantime, other very exciting news is that I've put this base cabinet in and the sink is pretty much ready to go as well. This was quite a big job. I haven't made a dedicated video about that because I've already made videos about fitting kitchens and stuff. It's just like a mini kitchen fit. This is all going to be boxed in, by the way, so ignore the state of the pipes and things there. And also ignore the back of these units because these have been used in the original kitchen and then a temporary kitchen and then a temporary utility room, and now we're repurposing them for a 4th time for the final utility kind of under sink storage area. So there's loads of holes in the back of this unit that are redundant. That's not my fault, I didn't make them. One of the final jobs I want to do on the sink before I plumb it all in is just seal the edges of the worktop just to protect them. You can't actually see the edges, so there's no need for any edge banding or anything like that, but I will seal them with some like yacht varnish. You can get a better idea of what I've actually had to do here to get this sink to fit in. So I've had to cut down the unit. So this is a 300 and a 400 kind of bolted together. So I've had to cut down the entire middle section here to get the bowl under, and then obviously hack all of this out. All of these little cutouts are so we can get to the clips that hold the sink onto the worktop. So I'm just using 4x40 screws for holding the worktop down, by the way. Obviously, whatever you use, just make sure it's not too long and it's not going to pop through your worktop. So if you remember, I cleaned up the old waste from the old sink, but the old waste had a square overflow connector and this sink has a round overflow connector. So I'm seriously hoping somewhere in my box of random waste plumbing bits, I've got a round overflow connector, otherwise I've got a bit of a problem. Oh yes, that's the fella. As is very often the case, Phillips screw on this, such is life. Again, trying to do this with a camera in the road is a little bit tricky, so I'm all cack-handed. Yeah, good. And I don't know if you remember what I was saying about certain fittings being leak-proof by design, and this is quite a good example of a fitting that's kind of leak-proof by design. They very rarely leak because it's almost impossible for them to leak. But basically, obviously, the water is going down this bit here. Your overflow connects in on this side above where the outlet connector is here. And then if you imagine once this is in the sink like that, water can only go down there and then down there and then out the bottom. And this is a male connector going into a female connector. So there's really no opportunity for that to leak. And then this bit here is going to connect into this part of the trap, kind of like that. So as long as we've got a good seal just there, then there is no way it can leak. And even if there's a bad seal around the edge of this and water somehow gets underneath this edge, then it's only going to go into the top of this. And this has kind of a downward slant on it, so the water's going to be forced down here. It's very unlikely that it's going to travel kind of uphill on this bit and then around and down. The water's always going to try and flow that way. So yeah, it's just something to look out for really. I wish more manufacturers would make fittings such as wastes that are leak-proof by design. There is really no way this can leak. I mean, someone will pick us up in the comments now. I've seen them leak before. I know how you could make it leak. Okay, one little thing here, because the only problem that you're going to have if water does get round the side of that is that water's not going to stay in your sink when you've filled it up. It'll gradually kind of drip out and it'll go down the drain. And normally you get a pretty good seal with the rubbishy little foam gasket that comes with it. But I can feel on this, when I'm resting this inside there, I can feel kind of metal on metal. So it's clearly not, it's not even touching the gasket. So I'm going to do the old plumber's mate thing on that just to bed it in. Be very careful if you touch the edge of this, because this is razor sharp. Easily cut yourself on it. So again, I'll just bed it down with a little twist. It's good. There's a little bit, I mean, this is a brass fitting, so it's not going to cause any problems, but I'm going to put a little bit of WD-40 on that just to lubricate it a little bit. WD-40 isn't a lubricant. Shouldn't use WD-40 for lubricating things. It'll dissolve the plastic. Your sink will explode. Oh, where's a 10p piece when I need one? Now, before I fit anything else, I'm going to get the tap fitted, because it's going to be easier to get this in before all the waste pipe work is in. Let's have a look at it and see what we've got. So, interestingly, these tap tails have got the isolation valve built into them. So that's quite nice. So, yeah, they're literally ready to shove on a piece of copper. I'm never keen, I know you can do compression fittings onto plastic, but I'm not a fan of it. I prefer to run a little tail of copper and then run the copper into a plastic fitting if you have to use plastic fittings. And by the way, as I've said before, I've never ever had a problem with plastic fittings, but there's a time and place for both in my view. Anyway, use what you want. I'm just showing you the way I'm doing it. Anyway, this is like a quick fit mechanism. I've never done this quick fit thing before. We'll see what it's like. What way around does this go? It goes that way. Oh, I'm going to have to actually look at the instructions. Feed the base through the sinkhole from the top, and you tighten it up from the top with the Allen key. That's clever. And then that one just kind of slides around. So how would you get that on then? Do we need that? If the surface the tap is being fit to is over 8mm, or you need extra stability, follow the alternative installation steps over leaf. I think extra stability is never a bad thing, but I'm not 100% if that massive thing will fit on. Yes, I've checked, that will fit on. On thin stainless steel sinks, the big taps can tend to kind of swing about a bit, so any extra stability I think is probably a good thing. So what do you do if you're doing that? You need to take this out. And then you feed this through from the top. And then it says to make sure the base is centralized when viewed from the tap. So we're probably going to want the tap to be at kind of that angle by default, I would have said. And then this is going to go on the underside, I think, with that flat washer there. Yeah, that's a nice fit there. So that must go like that. Right, I'm going to have to kind of clamber under the sink to put that in. Again, almost impossible to film this, but That's what's going on underneath. So I'm just kind of in the process of tightening that up from the top using aforementioned Allen key. And then proceed to step 4 of the normal instructions. So now you put the pipe tails in. That just kind of sits there. Isn't that funny? Okie dokie. So there's the top, all solid. And that's what we're looking like underneath. And that one is just free to move. Isn't that funny? Anyway, just make sure that your isolation valves are pointing forwards. I think what I'm going to do is let's aim for having pipework up to kind of there. Maybe a bit higher. There. So I'll quickly run that in and come back to you. These isolation valves here are just the handiest things. So I'll drain the water out the pipes from the basin. So it's just a little 11mm spanner you need to tighten up the tap tails, by the way, which bizarrely on this you can do from the top on the right hand one, but on the left you have to do it from underneath. Don't over tighten them. Now, I cannot do this with the camera in the road. I'll come back to you in a second. Have I deburred these? And I don't believe this, I've completely run out of copper pipe. And we're on to absolutely my last dregs. There we go. The trolls will go mental that I've just used a piece of push fit in the middle there instead of running copper all the way down. But I'm not going out and buying a length of copper pipe just for 3 inches of copper that I'm short of. Such is life. At some point in the future, I may or may not, probably won't bother to replace that with a single length of copper pipe there. Anyway, we'll turn the water back on. We'll just clear the air out. Check for leaks. We are good. Now bear in mind that isn't actually attached on yet. That's just loose at the minute. So whatever you do, don't forget to close those isolation valves. So talking of which, I might as well tighten those up now. They really don't need to be mega tight. You can generally just hold that with your hand and get it tight enough. You can always nip it up afterwards if you've got a slight leak, but yeah, you shouldn't need to. That's plenty. Just make sure your isolation valves are pointing forwards. Cool, that should be it. And then they kindly supply this little thing of grease to grease up the O-rings on here, so I'll do that. Not too much. Then we've just got this bit that goes over the top. And then I guess that just clips on. There we go. Done. Nice. Actually, in hindsight, there's a little grub screw to put in at the back here. 2 of them. It's probably easier if I start them off before clipping it in place. Even supply a little screwdriver for them. Really little hex key. Quite impressed with this. As I say, normally install grower, but this seems good. Now I was wondering what you do to clean out the little cartridge in this, and they supply a little key to get it out. That's really nifty. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to have to test this with a bucket in the sink because I don't want to put all the waste pipe work in and then discover there's some sort of problem. So yeah, I need a bucket. I guess that'll do. Right, fingers crossed. No leaks. Nice and dry. Oh, that is nice. Nice. This is a good opportunity to check for any leaks around the plug hole as well, and it is bone dry and the sink is full of water, so yeah, we are good to go. Hope this bowl's big enough. Uh-oh. Oh, just. Now, for the waste, I know I'm going to get flack for this, but tough, I don't care. I'm up to the absolute dregs of fittings and things that I've got left, and I refuse to go out and buy even more fittings when I've got this, which is ultimately going to end up going in the bin. But yes, it's got some black plastic on, such is life. So I think I've worked out a way with the fittings that I've got of making this work without having too much black plastic on display. Worst case, you know, you can paint it. It really doesn't matter. Think of the environment. I'm not just chucking perfectly good stuff in the bin because it's black instead of white. Right, quick check for leaks. Fingers crossed. Would help if I took the plug out, this thing. We are good. Right, can leave that running for a little bit. There we go, final check for leaks and we are all good. We are dry as a bone in there. The only black bit of plastic that's visible is that join there and you can't see it. So yeah, not worth losing sleep over. Champion. Still no mouse. I think I'm just going to have to be a bit more aggressive with the amount of insulation I'm putting down there. Maybe it just kind of fell out. Bit odd though. Anyway folks, I think we'll wrap this one up. We've got functional sink and it is working lovely. I'm debating whether or not to put a bead of silicone around this edge. I don't think it needs it. It comes with like a sponge sealy thing that goes around that edge. So I don't know. Food for thought, what do you reckon? Let us know down in the comments below. As I say, I've always had a bit of a preference for grower taps in the past, but I'm very impressed with this Bristan. It might actually become my favourite make of tap, and as I say, not sponsored. It's thanks to the fact that people, amazing people, support this channel on the members zone, members.gosforthhandyman.com, that I'm able to make sponsorship free videos and say what I like about products. So if I thought this was rubbish, I would genuinely tell you. So we are really on the home straight now. There's not very much left to do at all. I'm probably going to do a temporary fit of the toilet ready for the building inspector coming over, because he's going to be coming very, very soon. And I can't do the final fit of the toilet until all the new flooring's in and stuff like that. That's going to take a little while, but I could do a temporary fit and then that gets it all kind of done and hopefully signed off. Anyway, we'll leave it there for today. As per usual, obviously I'm not a plumber. Please don't view anything in this video as plumbing advice, because as I say, it's not my area of expertise, but I can get by. I've done it for a long time. I would typically do plumbing maintenance work back in the day if it was just kind of very minor jobs that plumbers generally didn't want to touch. But doing plumbing as a full-time gig is an entirely different ball game. So yeah, hats off to all the plumbers out there. There's lots of very, very good channels on YouTube about plumbing. So I'm not about to tell you how to do this sort of work. This is just an opportunity to see how I've done a particular job for myself. Anyway, I hope you've got something from it. I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions or anything, pop them down below. As per usual, look after each other, be nice to each other, and we shall see you next time. Tatty bye.